Alrighty, welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. It is great to see you this morning. This is not one of our usual mornings. If you remember, I haven't done Wednesdays for a while just because of general busyness and working on Magpie Times, of course. But in the case of this week, we began running a show that was a beautiful and recent rug hooking show that took place at the Portland Library in New Hampshire. I'm sorry, Portsmouth Library in New Hampshire, and we only got partway through it. So I've been able to, with the help of some of the guild members, including a lot of help from Chance Allen this morning, been able to go through some of the slides, find out who made them, since it wasn't possible to tell from the tags in the show itself. I've been able to go through and get information for most, if not all, of the rugs that we started looking at. And then there was a bunch more that by the end of Monday, the show, I just couldn't get to. And I felt awful because they are all beautiful and worthy rugs. There are tons of contributors, or there were, to the show from the Seacoast Guild. And I didn't want to cut anybody's work out of there. It is all worthy and it is all beautiful. So I thought, why don't we come back this morning on an odd day that we're not used to getting together and look at some of the pieces that we missed and recap some of the work that we saw, but it wasn't possible to make out the tag, and I didn't have any additional information at that point. Cheryl, it's great to see you. Is it nice on the Cape? We already booked our summer thing, but I think I'm going to have to shoot out there before the summer. I bet it is just gorgeous out there. Lots of robins and it's windy. 45 is amazing. Linda, it's great to see you in New Jersey. You know, this exhibit looked beautiful, and I so wish that when I went up to Reading to speak to that guild, that I realized that I had done the geography in my head, that it wouldn't be that much further, because that was my chance. I was already 2.5 hours in the right direction. That was my chance, and I really regret and lament that I wasn't able to see the show in person, but I have been given such great and thorough information about the pieces that we can enjoy them now. So I'm going to go right into the show immediately. I know a lot of people aren't expecting this. It's more of a pop-up show today, but I'm just going to go right in and start not exactly where we left off. I'm going to be kind and rewind to some of the pieces that I wasn't able to attribute. And I think, again, with the help of Chance this morning, thank you for spending time on the phone with me, we were able to attribute the pieces that I have in this show. So why don't we come back here? I have a finite time window today because Teddy's back at school and he has a half day. So let's come back in here and let's I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the ones that we saw last Monday, this past Monday, but I hope that you do. I really hope that you do. I hope that you get in there and spend time looking at these and pause, because there's quite a lot of rugs in this presentation. Fire Love 365, good morning to you too. Welcome. Super good morning. Joan, great to see you. You're in from Jamaica, in Alabama now visiting. Joan, super welcome to you. Happy hump day. Happy Wednesday. Great to see you live. I'm so happy that you're both there. Let's start with this piece. We looked at this piece on Monday in some great detail. I thought it was absolutely extraordinary. This is indeed an original piece, and this is by Faith Webster of York, Maine. You will notice quite a few pieces that I'm featuring in this show from the Portsmouth show are from Faith Webster. She is one of the people who has multiple pieces in the show that I think are all extraordinary. So we talked about this one on Monday. You know how much I loved it. Catherine, it's great to see you. Oh, it's cold in California. Isn't it funny how everything's kind of topsy-turvy right now? Not really funny, but eerie and curious. Great to see you. This is super gorgeous, Fire Love 365. And remember, I'm going to kind of whiz through these just to attribute them. And then remember, you can go back to that Monday show where we break some of these rugs that we looked at early in the presentation down. They are all so worthy and so beautiful, worthy of looking at, in some detail. This is one we looked at on Monday. This was made by Angie Meyer. It's designed by Angie Meyer. This one, I think, was hooked by Gail Dixon of Dover, New Hampshire. And this pattern is called Maritime Christmas. Beautiful nautical piece. And again, we looked at this one on Monday. So I'm going to keep going. These are attributions. This one, I didn't realize at the time, is by my friend Jane Sitnick of Jane is in New Hampshire, right? Jane, you're in New Hampshire. I think Jane is at Guild right now. This is a piece. Remember I said, like, I think there's a Guatemala tie-in here because of that great multicolorist program where hookers from all over the world can go to Guatemala and be matched up with a rug hooking artist. In this case, the artist was Nicolasa Barron, and Jane was matched up with Nicolasa Barron, and Jane is in Maine. And they worked on this piece together. So my hunch was right on Monday. It has all the sort of tropes of a piece that comes from the multicolorist school of hookers and teachers. What a great experience. I did not know that Jane did that. Next time, I just saw Jane last weekend. I'll have to ask her more about that experience, because all of the people who go to Guatemala on this trip, it's like an arranged vacation, but it's to Guatemala. So it's kind of nice. I mean, for me, my comfort zone would be low because I haven't been to that part of the world. I'd be worried about language and customs and food and what things were. It's great to go in this situation where you're like with a group and people know and can speak to you and tell you and bring you to all of the beautiful places. It is an ongoing thing, and it's called Multicolorist. So you can look that up. They have a website where they sell their original rugs. And you can also sign up for this adventure. It was off for a few years during COVID, and now, as of this past year, it's back on. So if that's something you're interested in participating in for growth, for adventure, to sort of stretch the limits of what you feel you can do, this would be a great opportunity to get in there, meet someone lovely, and work on a new original piece. Now, this is another piece that we looked at on Monday. I'm focused on the large gray piece that I talked about for quite a while on Monday, and I just want to attribute this to the designer is unknown, but the gray primitive with the black lamb's tongue border, sort of penny rug border, this is by Sissa Pitkin. So giving that attribution here, but again, designer unknown. If you're joining us a couple minutes in, I'm attributing some of the rugs that we looked at in the Monday show, and then I'm going to show you some more rugs that we haven't looked at yet. This is by Jenny Nunnally. This is a terrier. It's called Antique Terrier. That is the name of this piece. Jenny is another artist who you're going to see a few pieces from in today's show. It is exceptional. Pretty, very primitive work here. And again, this is one of the pieces that we talked about on Monday in detail. I totally fell in love with this piece. This is a new piece that I put in today that Chance sent me this morning. This had a curious backstory to it, and this is done by Chance Allen herself. So it was a crop of a larger picture. So this is the best detail I can bring to you, but it's such an unusual piece. This is called La Mano, and it's an image that is based on a Mexican card game called Loteria, like lottery, right? And if you've seen this game out in the wild in vintage stores, there is some beautiful graphic work associated with the game Loteria. And this is one of the cards that's associated with that game. And again, this piece is by Chance Allen, and it's called La Mano, based on the game. I always love when there's an interesting backstory to a piece, right? Like it's just like, oh, is it like tarot? Is it like an oracle card? No, it's a Loteria card, right? And it has Mexican origins in terms of design and the board game itself. Interesting. Great backstory. I love that too. It's so different. I know you remember this piece. It is extraordinary. And I got the name on this because the tag is large enough that I could read it, Pat Laska. And this piece is called Elwyn and Arthur. Extraordinary piece. Pat cites, and these are her, I think grandsons. Pat cites on this tag that she did this piece with help from Diane Stouffer. So I want to also say Diane's name because this was a teacher or help situation as well. But Pat, gosh, I mean, we talked about this one on Monday and how extraordinary the faces are, right? The work, the single loops for the teeth, the amount of expression that's achieved in very few loops and a very wide cut loop at that. So still in sort of Monday's world here, looking at the ones that we looked at on Monday and finally able to attach a name to each piece. The piece on the bottom is another, so the poppies, they're called Montecatino poppies. That's also Pat Laska from the slide before, right? Elwyn and Arthur. The one on the bottom, the poppies, that's another Pat Laska. That's another extraordinary piece. The teacher with this piece was Ania Knopp. So some of these cards are giving attributions to, and this isn't done in every show, but to teachers, to people who dyed wool in some cases. So where there is an additional shout out, I'll give that shout out myself. The piece above it that has that sort of Moroccan feel, that piece is by Charlotte Hefford, Hefford. So two pieces that we looked at and fell in love with on Monday. Now we have names to attach to these pieces. The lobsters. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller by unlocking it, so get ready. I'm going to take you on a small ride here. We looked at and loved these lobster pieces, so I have a bit more information on these two pieces. We're looking at the lobsters here. So these pieces are by Faith Webster. And one of them, the bottom one is called Lobster Sunday, and the top one is called Flowering Lobster. And let me see if I can read my own notes. Yes. So Faith credited with these two images, she credited and thanked the author, Andrew Cook, for the book. Andrew's book is called Lobstering is an Art. And these were images in the book that it sounds like Faith asked for permission from Andrew Cook and was able to hook them. And so beautifully at that. So down at the bottom, Lobster Sunday, on the top, Flowering Lobster. And again, images with permission from a book by Andrew Cook called Lobstering is an Art. Certainly, if you love these images, you would probably love looking at the book as well, right? Two gorgeous images. This is the William Morris style piece that we looked at. The company who produced this piece, Canadian company, one of my favorites, Encompassing Designs. So this piece is done also by Faith Webster, and the design is by Encompassing Designs, but of course it is The Strawberry Thief by William Morris, a pattern drawn by Encompassing Designs, and the wool dyed by Sarah Giuliani. So lots of credits in this piece. It is an extraordinary piece. They just get better and better. They do, and I normally don't go through this fast, but because we looked at some of these on Monday, I want to get to the ones we didn't look at too, because the Monday ones, they are there for you, and you all are going to love looking at them. So this is sort of a group picture, and we did look at this briefly on Monday, so I want to give attributions to all. On the far left, the sort of yard-long tall one, that is also by Faith Webster. That is an original design that is called Fish House. So beautiful. I'm looking at the tall, thin piece on the far left. Faith Webster, an original design called Fish House. That reminds me, if you also love poetry, there's a beautiful poem. I haven't read it for years. I'm gonna have to find it again. I think by Elizabeth Bishop, that's called Fish Houses. And obviously this reminded me of it because this piece is called Fish House. It is a beautiful poem. Highly recommend you look it up and read. It's a long narrative poem, and it is just gorgeous. And this really evokes the same feel, the same atmosphere for me. On the top middle, we are looking at a piece by one of my all-time favorites, Grace Collette, the skateboarder piece, right? The skater. So I know that we've seen this piece, and I have just poured over this piece. I was loving on this piece, I think at the Green Mountain Show. I think it was the Green Mountain Show. But this is Grace Collette on top, the skater. So much to say about Grace Collette. And if you love this piece, I have done many shows about and with the great Grace Collette. Down under the skater piece, another one of my favorite artists who I've covered a lot and is a good friend, Janet Connor. And this piece on the bottom, let me stretch it open just a little bit. Let's do that. Let me take you on a little ride with this piece. I'm going to stretch it, so look out for movement. I'm just going to show you the fish houses on the far left. Gosh, isn't that pretty? And then in the middle, I'm looking at Grace Collette skateboarder. And under here, and again, this is a slide we looked at on Monday, I'm looking at Janet Connor's sort of mixed technique piece. This piece is called Willy Nilly Abstract, and you can see it includes hooking, standing wool, and quillies. Absolutely beautiful piece. I saw Janet not that long ago at the New England Fiber Festival, and she had, I think, if not this piece, similar pieces. She's done sort of a series of pieces in the I don't want to say willy, that's her expression, right, willy-nilly, but in a real mixed media style using lots of different rug making techniques. Super interesting, real departure from her more classical stuff. On the top right is a piece called Femme de Deco, so Art Deco woman, done by Jenny Nunnally. And that piece I definitely recognize as a 1920s Vogue cover. So unknown whether Jenny, at this moment, whether Jenny drew it or it was made. I know I have this piece in Ribbon Candy Hooking. I have all of the Vogue pieces up that are copyright free at this moment. They are a beautiful source of images to tap everything before 1929 at this point. So many different artists. And in fact, I did do a design like class just about Vogue covers of this period and citing maybe 4 or 5 of the famous artists of this period who were the most popular artists to do cover designs. Absolutely beautiful piece, Jenny. Lots of beautiful pieces in this show. And down below is a smaller primitive piece, again by Jane Sitnick. Beautiful cat done in the primitive style, lots of movement, all neutrals, really well done, classic folk art piece. Absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to move to our next slide. And this is another sort of compilation slide. So why don't I unlock it? Doing some behind the scenes foolishness here. And let's look at these piece by piece. So the one that you're looking at on the left is by Faith Webster. It is called Fire and Ice. Alicia Matthews dyed the wool. No, I'm sorry, Alicia Matthews. I'm thinking I wrote that name down. Maybe that's like a teacher, or maybe it was a class with Alicia Matthews. The wool for this piece was dyed by Anya Knapp. Knapp. So we've heard that name before in this show. And again, lots of attributions in this show down to supplies. So each one of these pieces gives sort of a shout out to different people for help, or because it was made or started during a class. I think that's the case with Fire and Ice by Faith Webster. And the shout out to Alicia Matthews. Absolutely beautiful piece, and you can see that there is some trapunto on this piece. Grace Collette also does a ton of trapunto in her pieces. Trapunto I've talked about often on these shows, but it's a different technique. It is not a rug hooking technique. It is an early 20th century sewing technique where you basically attach a second piece of fabric and stuff it with stuffing, whether it's wool noodles or batting, whatever, to make it very three-dimensional. It's not Waldoboro, it's not hooked, it's a piece of fabric that has been stuffed from behind and creates this wonderful three-dimensional effect. I'm going to come over here to another of Chance's pieces. This piece is called Woody, and this piece was made to honor and remember Chance's husband, Woody. And it contains in it, it functions like a scrapbook or like a Baltimore album quilt. Lots of compartments with some storytelling, things that Chance and Woody loved, things that were special to them. Beautiful sort of memory or memorial piece, colorful, significant, symbolic, emotional, heartfelt, and just lovely. Beautiful, beautiful piece. So this piece is on the right is called Woody by Chance Allen. I'm coming down here to the bottom left where we're seeing a smaller Grace Collette piece. This piece is called Happy Hour. I know this piece is another one I've seen in person, and I think it was, again, also at the Green Mountain Show 2 years ago, I think, when Grace was one of the featured artists. And it was such a bonanza that day for me because there were so many of her pieces in one place, and she was there to talk about them. I had a bit of like stage fright, like a bit starstruck at that moment, but she was so nice and forthcoming with information and details about the pieces that are all extraordinary and so evocative. Absolutely beautiful silhouette piece on the bottom left, Happy Hour by Grace Collette. Coming over here on the right, this is a piece, again, these are slides I think that we saw on Monday, by Pat Santara, that is called Little Cayman. So I'm looking at the piece on the bottom right that has, it's a composite, right? And I believe that this is, I'm not sure. I believe Chance said that this is an original design. So not absolutely confirmed, but I think that is what we said. Absolutely beautiful sort of still life collection of flowers and shells, has a very tropical feel to it. Lovely piece. I really, I just feel that we don't see enough still lifes in rug hooking. In textiles in general, we don't see a lot of still lifes. And there is a big difference in my mind between, for example, a still life that we would see in, I don't know, in a 17th century Dutch painting, where we have like an empty liquor bottle and a couple of seashells and a half-burnt candle, right? They're absolutely a genre of art that has value and is interesting. But in more recent years, right, we tend to see still lifes done, whether in painting or in music, right? I can think of quite a few art songs that are based on still lifes, where your eye is being directed to a collection of things that have, like Chance's piece Woody, that have personal symbolism and sort of personal mythology tied to them. Those are my favorite kinds of still lifes. And for me, Little Cayman reminds me of a vacation, things that you would put, right, whenever we go away on vacation. My daughter Jocelyn puts together like a little curiosity box, like a shadow box filled with a cabinet of curiosities with like broken off crab legs that immediately stink, and sand and seashells and things like that. And looking at that kind of a composition is a great way to record a vacation and something to think about as we, gentle reminder, I'm putting in a Magpie Times thought right here, because the spring issue of Magpie Times is due in your content, your busy bee stuff, anything to do with bees, pollinators, or spring in general, be sending in to me at ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com by February 1st for the spring issue of Magpie. But the summer issue of Magpie is themed Wish You Were Here holiday postcards. Now, wouldn't it be interesting to put in a piece like this piece, Little Cayman, or maybe you have similar pieces, things that you've hooked after your vacation. So not necessarily a postcard, but a kind of hat tip to the great vacation that you had and the things that you remember from that vacation. That's a great sort of mental challenge when you're putting a new composition together. And if you come up with something like that, or you have something like that, go ahead and send it in to me, because I can definitely use that for the summer issue. I would be happy to use that for the summer issue. Michelle, my love, great to see you. You have been a busy bee, and I am way behind on writing. I miss you. Okay, this is another exceptional piece. I don't know if we got to this one on Monday. I can't remember, but I can tell you this piece is by Janice Ricker. with an attribute to Lois Dougal. I'm wondering if it was started in a class or maybe she was a teacher. But this extraordinary multi-paned piece, and we are seeing more and more of this, as we should. It gives you one unified story, right? So it is cohesive in its theme, but lots of snapshots of different angles of the same story. Isn't it extraordinary? It's incredible. So Janice Ricker made this piece. It's an original design. She's from Newcastle, New Hampshire. And this piece is inspired by her family business, which is the Ricker Lobster Company, just as you would guess. It's just extraordinary. More and more, but not often enough, I am seeing these kinds of window pane breakdowns of storytelling pieces. One of them came in front of me when I judged the Big E this past year. Lots of little compartments that tell the story. I remember recently we did a whole show on the rug hooking artist Agnes Vermouth, and this is one of her tricks that she does a lot. One composition, lots of compartments, and lots of opportunities for storytelling, just like you're flipping through a photo album and you're remembering this, that, and the other, but they all go together into the same story, the same memory, the same week, the same summer. One of the interesting things that Chance told me about this particular piece by Janice Ricker is that it is hanging on this fishing gaff. So this is an original vintage hook. You see this piece hanging on it. It's a vintage hook, right? An actual fishing gaff, and really smart, unique, and eye-catching way to hang a piece that has to do with the lobster business, right? With the family business. Sandy, great to see you. That's okay. This is an odd day. And I do want to say I was planning on coming on Monday, but I did have to have a long talk with Chance this morning to get all of this nailed down. So I had to push it back a little bit. Plus, Jocelyn was up sick, throwing up all night because she's got a stomach bug from school. Apparently half the school is empty because of this summer stomach bug. Dear, oh dear, so I came to you at 11 today, but you are not late. It is here for you whenever you want. So what an unusual piece, right? Janice Ricker's piece with the lobster, the family business, the Ricker lobster business, hanging on this beautiful original vintage gaff. Very clever. Another really unique piece, and we definitely didn't see this because I don't remember talking about this on Monday. This is a piece by Jenny Nunnally, and this is called Daisy Dog. And Chance thought this must be an original piece. I certainly haven't seen this piece. I would assume it's a Jenny original. Another extraordinary piece with a lot of interest happening here. It's not just a phenomenal pet portrait, right? It's before we get to the portrait itself. It is so clever sewing on the dog leash like that. That is so brilliant. It functions as scroll work and a beautiful border, a frame, right? Absolutely brilliant. Just like using the gaff, the fishing gaff, as a holder, as a rod. It's great thinking up these little details. And I have to say, from guild to guild, and this is something I'm noticing a lot lately, each guild, I spoke to the Seacoast Guild maybe last year. Each guild has its own identity and personality. And here in New England, we're so spoiled because there's so many guilds that are close together, and a lot of people belong to multiple. I belong to multiple. And you get a different set of people at each one. But it's so interesting that within one guild, there is such a sense from one to the next of shared interests and excitement. And we do see in guilds like the Seacoast Guild, where people are doing so much original designing, so much personal storytelling, and so much thinking out of the box with like hanging methods and in this case, Daisy Dog's leash. It's interesting, right? It's like enthusiasm and original ideas are just infectious from one guild to the next. You do tend to see, in one guild you see like, a trend in one thing or another. In this guild, the trend seems to be for just generally thinking outside of the box. And I think that is a brilliant and inspiring place to be, right? It must be wonderful attending this guild, showing up and wondering what ideas your friends are bringing with them for that meeting, right? Because it's so varied. It's so varied. So Daisy Dog is an exceptional piece with a modeled background that is so perfect. It's a mostly neutral piece, and the dog has a lot of brown, and of course, like the white tips, the white wiry sort of wild highlights, and this works so well on that brownish ground. It matches, but it stands out amazingly. The placement of the leash in terms of a composition is brilliant. You can see where the hand goes through, right? I always put my wrist through and then grab it. I'm so careful about leashes, right? But you see the part that you put your hand through, the part that clips on, it's not arranged in a perfect kind of matchy-match rectangle. It's loose, it's fun, it's casual. You can almost see Daisy Dog grabbing her leash and running out the door. It's a very energized composition, and the handling of the dog in these long pieces, it's not so much proddy as it's cut pile, right? Because it's not shaped wool that's being pulled through, which is the very definition of proddy. It's yarn or very thin strips that are being pulled through and left long, right? So when we do rug hooking in general, we're talking about a looped pile. But if we're talking about, for example, latch hook or Rhea rugs, we're talking about a cut pile. In this case, we're talking about, I think, still hooking, but a very high cut pile. So dragging or pulling your yarn or your thin strips right through, but cutting them long to give realism and three-dimensional details to Daisy Dog's face, right? The eyebrows, the little chinny chin, the top of the head, absolutely precious piece. And Fire Love, you're right, it's a genius work. So much inspiration and so much love in this piece, and so much personality in this little face, right? Oh no, Becky, Indiana is a bit lacking with guilds. Yeah, I'm due to have a conversation with Atha. I'm due to have a conversation. God, I owe her a message with Kay, because Atha is updating their website, and I will get together with her for a walkthrough, either a recorded or a live walkthrough of the new Atha website. And I think it will become easier to find each other on that grid with the updated website. So I will spend a lot of time with Kay making sure that the new Atha website serves everybody even better than it has in the past. And it's also a great opportunity to open up conversations with Kay about where the sort of blackout twilight areas are on our guild grid of North America. Where are the places that are underserved in terms of like meeting places and guilds? So I do want to talk about that. I do want your messages about that. Gosh, the sun is coming in and out like crazy today. It feels like nighttime all of a sudden. I do want to hear from you on that so I can pass that information on to Kay, and we can kind of hammer the corners of the US and Canada where there really aren't guilds that are there for people, and open up conversations about, can this be managed? Can we fix this? Can we create situations where people are at least meeting at a local library? People who want to come out, let's make it so they can come out. We are spoiled in this part of the country, and certainly the Seacoast Guild being close to, not immediately close to, but fairly close to the Mayflower Guild in Massachusetts, the Tin Peddler Guild in Maine, Wool and Magic in New Hampshire. I mean, there's a bunch that are right there that they are a drive away. But man, when there's this much talent in the building, I want to go. I want to be in the building too. So a lot of people, I think, do hop around from one to the next, and I think we should be conscious of trying to figure out how to be more helpful in areas where there aren't great in-person systems setting up. I also want to open up the conversation for people who don't have guilds, practical and nearby. I do want to open up the conversations about, do we want to start setting up more Zoom meetings? Because the Tuesday one is pretty full, the one that Kirsten hosts. And there's another one that she participates in or hosts on Thursday. I don't know a lot about that one. I wonder if it would be helpful if we also talked about having more days where there are more opportunities to Zoom with other people if you are in a remote area. Is that something that you all want? Is that something that would be handy? Is that something you would be interested in hosting? All these kinds of questions. Let's talk about this more in the near future. Yeah, the Zooms are excellent. And I know with Kirsten's Zooms, it functions as a guild for a lot of people. And she's such an overachiever. She tends to theme things, and they'll be talking about a book or almost have like fun homework and bring something to talk about. Or they don't. All of the Zooms don't have to work in that way, right? There could be Zooms that are led by people in different regions that say, yeah, I just want to show up and chat, right? So we should be talking about this more so that everybody feels like they are connected to a community where you are accountable to your friends who also show up and say, hey, what about that piece? You put that down a while ago. Come on, that really was a good piece. Do you feel like you want to get back in there again, right? Are you over it? Are you over the bad feelings with the piece? It's good to feel accountable to your friends, right? And it's good to show your friends pieces that you're working on and get loving, critical feedback from them. Yeah, it looks great, but you're right. The background really is like killing the thing. It's making it too busy. You really, if you are the kind of person who is looking for feedback and help, it is great if you can't be at a guild physically because of location or because of circumstances. It is good to be able to feel like there is a place for you where everybody knows your name and you can show up every week and reconnect with the same people and pick up conversations where you left off. Definitely something that we should talk about. I mean, we do that here to a certain extent, but you see me and my slideshow, and we don't see each other this way. Thursdays is pretty much the same folks gathering as Tuesday. Okay, Linda, that's great information. And Becky says, I've enjoyed the ones where you hook all day long. I'm sure that, yeah, the hook-alongs, I've enjoyed those too, and I should do more of those in the future. The problem with the hook-alongs is it does take a lot of time out of my schedule, and it's always worrying when I always have to think about, am I completely losing money taking days off to prep for it and then working that day? Unless it's like a group thing and everyone downloads something, then at least I feel like, okay, I'm not going to panic about work stuff, because work stuff is like up to here on me. I'm drowning in work stuff. But you're right. I love doing those too, and I love just hanging around and hooking together. I am going to think about the next one of those we can do, because it's always fun and relaxing for me too, and I'm always glad while we're there together. So this is another extraordinary piece by Jenny. So we are seeing some of the same names here. There are some people in this guild who are like fireballs of productivity. Like really, right? I mean, like crazy times. So this piece is by Jenny Nunnally and Erin Go Bra, Ireland Forever. You can see there are some great sort of tricks going on here. It is hooked, but it does look like a penny rug. Isn't that charming? It looks like the center is a penny rug, and then it's got sort of hooked leaves and vintage buttons. What a beautiful piece. What a cheerful piece. I've been thinking about Ireland a lot lately, because there is a flight directly from the airport that's 5 minutes from my mom's house to Dublin. What an easy trip that is, just to come out and be inspired. I was thinking, gosh, I wonder if there's any hookers over in Dublin. Wonder if it'd be fun to take like a little jaunt over there together and just sit around in some nice old pubs and do some hooking. That would be a fun trip, wouldn't it? This is a beautiful piece by Jenny, and she has got such a variety of different styles in this show. And, the touch of the buttons as well. Now, Daisy Dog was also Jenny's, just for comparison, the slide immediately before it. So many different styles. And again, another rug like Daisy Dog with the leash, with three-dimensional appeal, right? Beautiful scattering of vintage buttons, right? Adding to the interest because they are three-dimensional. It has that great applique touch. It's just more color, right? It almost reminds me of like if you were to find a leprechaun running away with a pot of gold and you dumped the pot out, would all of these buttons fall out? Like it's just a fun, energized, classic piece of work with a beautiful color palette that relates really well to Ireland and the sentiment here. It's just another beautiful piece. And a piece like this just reminds me, because I have got more buttons than a person should have. In life, you know, it's like in a past life I owned a button factory, and in this life I've been trying to recover all of the buttons. But you know, it is a great idea, and it gives you sort of permission when you see a piece like this to think about all of the stuff that maybe you have been hoarding. Maybe buttons is one of them, and maybe you think to yourself when you see a piece like this, ooh, wait a minute, I could really do something with my, you know, endless mason jars filled with buttons. And wouldn't that be fun? Maybe something pops into your mind. I'm loving everything that I'm seeing here. I'm sure that you are too. This is an extraordinary piece. I'm looking at the loons. This is by Diane Boldak. I'm sorry. And again, I'm looking at the loons. It is a pattern from a company called Hooked on the Creek. And this is Diane's first piece. There's an attribution also for George Conley, so I'm wondering if that maybe is a teacher. But the pattern is by Hooked on the Creek. A special shout out to George Conley, and the piece itself hooked by Diane Boldak, Boldac. And as a first piece, this is a huge, you got to be kidding me. It's beautifully positioned above a display case. Let me just stretch this out a little bit. So get ready for a ride, right? Don't fall off your chair because you're not expecting the movement. Yes, I know it, right, Linda? Exactly. First piece. It's crazy times. I mean, look at this. Here we go. And beautiful finishing on it too. Chance told me it has like a wool background on it, and it weighs a ton. There are mixed techniques happening here. It's extraordinary. It's an extraordinary piece. I would love to know more about Diane, whether she's done other fiber arts or she's a knitter or a painter. There is something going on here that gave her the ability to do her first piece that looks like this, right? It's either innate talent, hardwired talent that she was born with, or she's done a lot of other creative work. And she's very confident with her hands coming to rug hooking. And that is always the thing, isn't it? That's always the secret. Remember that crazy book, The Secret, where it told you to tape a doll, if you wanted money in your life, right? If that was your end game, if money was what you wanted, law of attraction was what The Secret was about, right? You tape a dollar bill over your bed, right? Like this, I mean, even back in the day, this seemed crazy to me. But I think the takeaway from that whole movement, because it was like almost became like a religion, The Secret. The secret was the law of attraction, right? And at the end of the day, I think we can relate this to rug hooking in terms of confidence. The secret is, if you mean to do it, right, and you make yourself feel confident about what your hands can do, even if it's your first project, you will do it well. You have to pre-program your mind, right? That is the law of attraction. You pre-program yourself, and the things you want, in theory, come to you, right? It's a little more than that in real life, isn't it? But in terms of rug hooking, if you are a beginner and you're thinking, oh, I haven't started yet, I'm kind of on the fence, I'm not sure that I can do this kind of work, you just have to trust yourself, that you have to metaphorically tape the bill above your bed and say, I can do this, right? I am just going to channel my self-confidence because I desire to do this so much. I will do it, and it will be successful because I'm going to make it so, right? That is something that you can do. Janice, great to see you in Pepperell, Mass. Great to see you. Happy Wednesday. So this is a great inspiration piece as a first piece, because it's an inspiration that it's a first piece, but I think it's just, it's speaking to people who are holding back and waiting for a sign, or waiting till something happens that they feel able to put their toe in the water. Just jump, right? Just get ready to jump. Be ready to jump if this is what you mean to do. This is a beautiful piece, Diane. It's an extraordinary piece. You did so well. Janice, it is great to see you. Oops, wait a minute. Wait a minute, I'm messing stuff up. Okay, this was another piece. I think this is one that Jeannie Crockett sent me. This is another piece by Jane Sidnick, who I saw also last weekend when I spoke at the Mayflower Guild. Another great buddy of mine, another buddy who kind of hops between guilds. Jane belongs to and visits with lots of the guilds in northern New England, and obviously the Mayflower Guild in Reading, Massachusetts, north of Boston. So this piece just really speaks to me on a lot of levels. Let's stretch this open a little bit. I do have my eye on the time because we have a few more, but I want to look at this together. I love Jane's work, and this is no exception. So this is an extraordinary piece in my mind because it has this great loose sketchbook quality portraiture happening, right? It is a caricature almost. It has fashion interest to me because of the character, because of the poise, the stately manner in which the character is holding herself, wrapped in a kind of jacket with a scarf wrapped around it, and this beautiful detail of having a label, like a clothing label, stitched visibly to the scarf. I just think as a touch, that is just phenomenal. And that gives me so many ideas and such inspiration about doing like a challenge portrait of ourselves using a label from, like, you know how, do you ever have this thing? I mean, maybe you don't. You probably have it together a lot more than I do. But do you ever have that thing where you go out in public and like you have a scarf on and the label is showing? Or classic for me, I have my shirt on inside out and the label is showing and someone says, I can see your label. For me, it happens all the time. I also think about my beloved Aunt Joan, may she rest in peace, my great sort of hero and an inspiration in my life, crazy, creative, eccentric person. But I remember that whenever there was, it's not funny, whenever there was a funeral, she was, she would show up with kind of like Shakespearean energy and just very like, falling all over things, and she would kind of collapse in front of open coffin situations, and inevitably there would be a TJ Maxx sticker on the sole of her shoe. It was just always, and it wasn't like the time or the place to say there's a sticker, like it just, but it happened several times, and it's just one of those label things, it's just one of those funny things that I think runs through life, and I just love the application of an actual label here. It's such fun. And another thing that Jane does that's really interesting, let me see if I can move this up a hair, is with her pieces, you see on the bottom right, she includes pinned onto the back of the piece strips, noodles of the materials that she used in the piece. Now, isn't that clever and helpful? That is an extraordinary way to remind people, and Jane is very big on thrifting and using found pieces, right? Being sort of very green in her approach, not really going for the throat with the milled pieces and the door mill, and but going for found pieces that she cuts up. And I think this is a great way of showing people the historic tradition or the sort of genesis of the craft. These are the things I cut up, and here are the colors they are, and see if you can pick them out in the piece. I think that's very helpful and practical for beginners to look at. Let me catch up for a second on our thread. Hang on, I missed some. Let's see. Fire love. Okay, you don't have to call me out so loud. Well, we're here for you whenever you're ready to go. We'll be here for you. And Janice says, I used to work with Jane and I got her into rug hooking. Thank you so much. Because she's a fireball, isn't she? She's a fireball. Janice, I'm sorry, I said Jane. Janice. These are not my best classes, I gotta say. Thank you so much for doing that. Outreach, shout outs, bringing your buddies into the craft. That's how it's done, right? Word of mouth is how it's done. We can't really get anywhere in this craft if it's not for word of mouth and exhibits like this one by the Seacoast in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, right? This is how people see the work, and this is how the work moves forward. This is another pretty piece. I think this is one of Jeannie Crockett's photos. This piece is called Covered Bridge, And this was hooked by Dot Bickford. This is a DeFranza piece, so happy DeFranza. And absolutely beautiful landscape, shades of Charles Wysocki, shades of Maud Lewis, just a classic New England. It doesn't have to be New England. I know the lion's share of covered bridges are in, oh, I've asked you this before. Where's Madison County? Is that, it's not, no, that's not Wisconsin. It's like Utah, not Utah, Idaho, Iowa. It's one of those, isn't it, that has more covered bridges than anywhere else in the U.S. Certainly this is a very New Englandy scene for me. Still lots of covered bridges in Vermont, New Hampshire. Even Connecticut has a ton of covered bridges. I love seeing these classic New England scenes, and this is a DeFranza pattern. I've met Happy DeFranza. Absolutely love her work. Love her stamp on the rug hooking business through the years. Absolutely beautiful images, beautiful work. And Dot has done magic here, hooking this piece up. Oh, Janice, you have a covered bridge in Pepperell. Oh man, I bet it's a beauty. I bet it's a beauty. I love the folk art appeal of these pieces. I can never get enough folk art landscapes. In my life, I can't. I just find them more charming than any other kinds of images. I love them so much. Grandma Moses included. I mentioned Maud Lewis, so I feel like I have to mention Grandma Moses. And you know, Grandma Moses' grandson, Will Moses, is a contemporary folk artist. I have been in touch with him in the past, and he does beautiful work in this style, a little more contemporary, interiors and exteriors. You'll find him on Amazon in books, right? He does a lot of illustrating in books, but love seeing those kinds of pieces, and Dot did a beautiful job. Now, we did look at this piece when we closed the show the other day. This is another piece by Faith Webster, and this is the Nubble. So this is Nubble Light, right? And remember, Faith Webster is from York, Maine. So this is Nubble Light in York, Maine. And we looked at this one on Monday, so I won't stay long here because the clock is ticking for me with picking up Teddy. But all of Faith's work in this show was just out of the park extraordinary. And I think I spoke quite a bit on Monday about how much I particularly love this piece. So The Nubble by Faith Webster, another stunning piece. This is a piece we have not seen yet. This is this photograph and the following one. Thank you again to Jeannie Crockett for these particular photos. This is a piece called View from My Treehouse by Grace Collette. Now, so this is hung a little bit high up, so I've got it at an angle. But you can see, I hope, that this is an image within an image. It has a very strong Victorian shadow box feel. It makes me think it's Waldoboro, right? So the border is done very high relief in Waldoboro, which is raised hooking that is clipped, right? Going back to our conversation on looped versus clipped, it is clipped hooking. It is densely hooked, right? Fine cut loops that you pack like pom-poms, bring up to the surface, and then cut with your scissors, sculpt with your scissors to create relief. So View from My Treehouse by Grace Collette, an extraordinary example of Waldoboro. And in the center, the smaller picture, right, you can see, I think it still has some Waldoboro elements, but like Happy Hour that we saw earlier, the silhouettes of the deer against the kind of skeleton, broken umbrella type trees, absolutely beautiful. I love the silhouettes in white, right? It just has such flavor, such flair. And this piece reminds me of beautiful hair work, feather tufting, the hair wreaths, all of those sort of lost female crafts of the late 19th century. The amount of detail and layering of natural forms in the border of this piece, just extraordinary. I have not seen this piece in person, incidentally. I would love to see this piece. Another astonishing Grace Collette. Now, we did look at this piece. This is called Magdalena, and this is another piece by Jenny Nunnally on the left. So we did look at this on Monday. This is all of Magdalena Bryner Eby's work is out of copyright, right? Because it was done in the middle to late 19th century. This is, I think this actual piece is called Friendly Bestiary or something like that. Friendly, No, Friendly Zoo. Friendly Zoo. I think it's called Friendly Zoo. Yeah, that's it. Beautiful piece, very, very large, but I wasn't able to attribute it until I talked to Chance this morning. So this is another stunning piece by Jenny Nunnally, and this piece is simply called Magdalena. This is another piece that you have not seen by Carol Murphy. This is a great example of um, a Jacobean style hooked piece that is done in the style of crewel work. By crewel work, that's EWEL, like embroidery, crewel work embroidery, right? So this is a stunning piece. We talk about the Jacobean style often because the Jacobean style includes these sort of tree of life sampler pieces. And this style of embroidery was very popular as needlework in the middle 20th century, in the 1950s and 60s and 70s. This style of crewel work was extremely popular, and Pearl McGowan, of course, was working during that time, overlapped that timeline, and did a lot of patterns. This might be a McGowan pattern. She did a lot of patterns that were based on Jacobean crewel work, needlework designs, and this is one of them, hooked beautifully by Carol Murphy. Now, one of the things about crewel work that is kind of a constant is that there is typically a white background or natural background, and that happens here again in this piece. This particular piece is called Hayward's Heath, and this is the first time that Carol hooked in the crewel work style, right? Because again, more often we see this kind of motif done with a needle, in this case a hook. And when you look, you will see that there are lots of beautiful patterns, mostly put out by Pearl McGowan, that really celebrate the crewel work style and movement of the middle 20th century. Beautiful piece by Carol Murphy. Very, very well done and beautifully framed. This is the last piece I have for you today from the show. This is a piece that is hooked by Nancy Brown. Another stunning lighthouse scene. This is called Canadian Lighthouse. Designer unknown, but the hooker is Nancy Brown. Another gorgeous piece. Lovely frame. I just love it. Like Carol's piece before this, when the frame is appropriate, and also Grace's piece, her frame with the treehouse piece, the Waldoboro piece we just saw. You know, it's great to find pieces that are framed and are framed in a way that I think really furthers the intention of the piece, right? Not a mismatch, not just like a frame, but the right frame. For me, this is that, because with this frame, these simple lines, the simple black border around this beautiful image of the Canadian lighthouse, we get a very thin black frame, right? So that is like, that in my mind matches. And the fact of the frame being a square and the circle fitting so well within it makes it possible to leave some of the linen showing, right? And to me, that becomes technically interesting when you're able to see what the backing fabric is, right? So this, in theory, could be something like a chair pad, right? It's a circle, but you're framing it into a square, leaving some of your background showing. I think it's extra interesting for hookers. Love to see what your backing fabric is, but for people who are not hookers looking at a piece like this, it gives them a great window into the technical aspect of hooking. What they're thinking to themselves, what are these on? Like, are they woven? What are they on? Well, you can see what it's on because some of it is revealed. It's absolutely a beautiful piece, super charming. I just love the idea of putting a round piece into a square frame. Normally I say don't do square peg, circle hole. In this case, do circle, circle hole, square frame, right? It makes a lot of sense. It's a great way to display. This has just been an extraordinary show. And the show came down, I think, on the 24th of January. Yeah, that one does look like you're looking out the window at that scene. And, you know, in the show, we did see some lighthouses. We saw like the family business, right? The lobster business. We saw the nautical buoys, the maritime Christmas piece. We did see the covered bridge. A lot of pieces that really signified, that had a sense of place, that signified where they were from. Because this is the Seacoast Guild, I think, meets in Maine, but the exhibit was in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. So basically, hopping right over the line, right there on the line. And, lots of references to life in that part of the world. So it was great to see some original designs. But it was also great to see some designs of familiar things because I had a strong sense of place looking at the rugs in this exhibit. And it is nice to know, it gives you a flavor of where the makers, where the hookers are from. So yeah, I enjoyed every sort of facet of the show. It really was lovely, expert, ran the gamut from absolute beginner with the loons, right, crazy, to very seasoned and well-known hookers. All of the work that I think we looked at was extraordinary work and such a variety, right? So lots of inspiration here. I'm very glad that we were able to take this morning and look at the show. And again, Chance, thank you for spending some time on the phone with me. Lots of notes, right? Lots of notes about the different slides and who did this work. So I'm glad that we were able to follow up the Monday show of the Seacoast Guild, their rug hooking show that went between December 2024 and January 2025. Thank you so much for putting that show up. All of you, thank you for sharing your beautiful work. And Michelle says, I love them all and feeling quite coastal right now. Oh, you're welcome. I loved looking at them with you. I'm going to scoot out the door and pick up Teddy on this half day. Have a great day, everybody. I will keep you posted on the Friday show. I know we're going to be visiting my mom this weekend, which we haven't done since Christmas. So I'm going to be thinking about whether I can run a Friday show. I hope to, but keep an eye. If you are subscribed, you'll get a notification. Keep an eye. I'll keep you posted on my thoughts for Friday. In the meantime, send your magpie stuff to ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com, and I will see you in the next couple of days for sure. Have a great